We are super excited to have Rob Ellis here from Jacob Media joining us on Market Movers on a Wednesday. We didn't have a show yesterday, but we are back today. We're bringing the thunder. Rob, how goes it?
Dan, I'm great, man. How could you not be better with everything that's happening right now in our world?
There's so much to discuss, right? And I was somewhat disappointed. Obviously, the Phillies signed Trey Turner. They signed Walker. They bring in a left-handed bullpen arm. I'm like so juiced up to talk about baseball right now. Mm-hmm. We don't have it listed, not even in our futures market yet. It's just too early. So I would love to say, hey, maybe the Phillies are trading at, whatever to win the World Series next year. But I don't know. I mean, I know you're able to talk about it elsewhere, but it's a little too early for us. But
well, look, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting because you're still in a nasty division. You're in a really, really difficult league in general, and that's the smart play by the Phillies, just to not to just keep pace, but maybe be a little bit more aggressive. But I like it, man. The only thing I don't like, too many years for Taijuan Walker, in my estimation. But all in all, I mean, I'm thrilled. Turner and you add a lefty, I'm all good.
How nice is it to finally live in a town where, and the Eagles have been this way for a while, but to live in a town, Rob, where the ownership actually wants to win. They actually want to spend money, right? Like before the Jeffrey Lurie era of the Eagles, you couldn't say that. Before John Middleton really took over, I mean, yeah, you had the Jim Thome signing, but it wasn't like the Phillies were going out of their way to bring in talent. But now, every year, they're bringing in guys capable of hitting 30 home runs, stealing 30 bases. Zach Wheeler's pitching 225 innings. It's a wild scene. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think they got enough of a taste. They got their beak wet enough where they're you get that close, man, you want to get over the top. You're going to spend the way that they spent. You're going to get over the top. And you're right. I think we are very fortunate. I think you have two organizations who know what they're doing and they're going for it. Two, I'm not sure they know what they're doing, but 2 out of 4 ain't bad. We've had much worse.
I was going to say, then you have the Flyers. We'll leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Yes.
The Sixers are just treading water, but that's fine.
Yes.
But obviously, as we sort of barrel towards the new year here, Rob, the NFL continues to dominate. I mean, it's like 95% of the volume here on Sport Trade is people loving the NFL. We had over 3,000 contracts traded alone just last Sunday. So people are finding Sport Trade. They're loving what they're finding, and they're having great times trading in and out and making some good amount of money here on some of these football games. The fodder of the week, right? Like I always joke internally here that like I really want to start narrative of the week segment, right? Where we basically just say, what is the national media talking about? Let's talk about how ridiculous it is. So you've got like, did Lamar Jackson cost himself $200 million? That's like one narrative box over here. You have like, well, are the Niners cooked without a real quarterback? You have that box over here. And then ESPN gave us an absolute gift Monday, just an absolute gift, Rob. They come out with this probability of how the Cowboys have like a 50% chance to win the Super Bowl. Not just go to the Super Bowl, not just win the NFC, but to win the Super Bowl. And the Eagles were like half of that. And I wanted to run down with you what I'm calling the first ever ESPN Hates Us Power Rankings. Okay. So this is a power rankings of not only the team or the city, well, I should say the team or the city, the ESPN purposefully prods, pokes, stokes, whatever, just to get ratings.
Okay.
Like it doesn't even have to make sense. And feel free to chime in too. So here's my list. We'll start with number 5. Number 5 on the ESPN Hates Us ratings, and this might come as a shock because they are living amongst the wolves there, is the New England Boston market, right? Boston market, delicious. But the New England Boston market, right? All we talked about for years and years was Tom Brady, whatever, all the various scandals, and now he's in Tampa. And I feel like you can't get through a Sports Center without having to listen to something about the Celtics or Tom Brady or whatever. They don't really cover the NHL. But I feel like Boston by far is they just go for it because they know the massholes are going to have something to say about it. What do you think?
Yes. I agree, and I'll tell you, and I don't want to spoil any list. If this is part of it, just feel free to let me know.
Yeah.
But having worked there, this was my first job out of college. I was a production assistant at ESPN, so I know of what I speak. Although it was like a little while ago. There are, even though it is a melting pot of people from around the country, it is predominantly New York and Boston. So there is a natural inherent bias toward those two markets, even though they claim that they are just a national, network, and that has nothing to do with it. It absolutely has something to do with it. So that plays into your, plus let's face it, they won a lot and there was always some meat on the bone with Brady and Belichick. So I absolutely 100% concur with you, with your first on the list.
Okay. Number four, not a team or a city. Actually, this is a person. Number 4 on the ESPN Hates Us Power Rankings is Aaron Rodgers. Not a day goes by where this dude doesn't open his mouth and ESPN it's in the A block. No matter what he says, Aaron Rodgers is in the A block. And of course, the last couple years, he has given us just a treasure trove of things to discuss between COVID, ayahuasca, his basic demeanor towards his teammates for the last 15 years. Generally, his basic demeanor towards everyone generally. I mean, if you've listened to me on this show, I'm not a huge fan. So that's number 4, not Green Bay, not Wisconsin. Love the people, love it there. Aaron Rodgers, purposefully put on a pedestal at ESPN for ratings.
All right, let's think about this. So the combination of obtuse and good spells ratings. Aaron Rodgers is both.
Yes.
Okay. Not to borrow a line from Shawshank, but Andy Dufresne asking the warden about being obtuse. He is a strange cat who delivers and plays well, and that is a dream. I was going to use another term, but that's just a dream for executives there. And he continues to deliver each and every week with something. Therefore, you got to just keep feeding it. They're going to be in trouble when Brady and Rodgers are retired. That will be a sad day at the mothership. That is for sure.
They are the league leaders in like the body image, or not body image, the reaction police, right? Every time Aaron Rodgers smirks or looks sideways at anybody, yells at his coach, guaranteed A block.
There's alerts that go off. It's like there's the red phone and immediately, you think John Skip or whoever's in charge now gets the call. Get
Do you think
Aaron
it just
Rodgers on right now.
It probably just
First
comes from
one.
Bob Iger, even though he was retired. Bob Iger saying, hey, you know what? I know I'm not around anymore, but get him on. All right, so 5, Boston. 4, Aaron Rodgers. Number 3 on the ESPN Hates Us Power Rankings. Again, a power rankings that ESPN purposefully pokes and prods these markets to stoke outrage. The Los Angeles Lakers. And never more true than when LeBron James goes cross country to play for this team. LeBron himself loves it. He brings it upon himself. He's an amazing. I actually envy the social savvy of this man. But the Lakers being bad is Christmas 365 to ESPN. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and for me, a more played out, boring, dull, who cares team you couldn't have. There's nothing that would draw interest from me about Russell Westbrook. On circumstance do I want to see this again? I've seen it. I know what it is, right? And we're going to keep pounding this thing. Keep getting our pound of flesh here from the Lakers. You're right. Anything that there is very similar alerts that go off. And here's my conspiracy theory: the league will not allow them to be down for a while, for too long here. They will figure this out because they know eventually, as much as it's Shangri-La for LeBron from his production career, he will bolt at some point. So they will figure out a way to make them relevant and make them decent some way, shape, or form.
I love that. Any other conspiracy theories before we get to number 2?
No, I'm not. I'm not like Mr. Oliver Stone. I am not looking for things, but that is one that has rung true over the years. That's for sure.
A quick aside: when I first moved back to Philly, and before I started working at CBS3, I started a podcast called Podspiracy Theory, where I would have a guest come on every week, and I would try to convince them that these conspiracy theories are true. Now, having said all this was like early 2018 before conspiracy theorists ran amok. Okay.
The problem is now you get into some really weird areas.
The problem is now the listening base for that is not the listening base I want.
Correct.
Put it that way. So we have not brought Podspiracy Theory back.
And it's not fun and light stuff. It's very heavy stuff, which no thank you.
Yeah,
no, thank you.
Not our scene anymore. Number 2 on the list. This could be controversial. I don't think it is. Alabama football. I don't know how many years in a row, Rob, we have talked about the end of the dynasty. The Saban dynasty, is it coming to an end? Or have we reached the end? I mean, I'll remind you, they've won 6 national championships, and they're in it every single season. But every year, regardless of how good Alabama is, or even if anybody in the SEC sniffs how good Alabama is, well, high alert. We're on high alert at the end of the dynasty. Alabama football is my number 2.
And Nick knows how to fuel those flames. Just look at the way this past weekend went down. I mean, he's appearing on every halftime show, every pregame show. Normally, he wants no part of that stuff, but
he's campaigning
his case.
Yeah, he's campaigning.
And he's also, in a way, obviously he's not going to come out and say this, but I don't think he likes the NIL stuff. I don't think he loves the portal, and a lot of this other stuff could potentially drive him away. And that scares the heck out of the networks because they know that Nick Saban, one way or the other, puts butts in the seats and puts interest. And you're right. He's in the Rodgers category. He's in the conversation, at least, with Aaron Rodgers for sure. I would agree with that.
The NIL thing is really fascinating to me because we're starting to see a lot of coaches say, hey, this is not why I signed up. But Alabama is so uniquely positioned to have, the endowment of St. Joe's just for their NIL.
Yep.
Right. So to me, I feel like Saban's in one of the unique positions where he probably shouldn't go anywhere. I mean, juxtapose that with a guy like Jay Wright, right? Who is not in that position and was kind of like, this is just not kind of for me. I'm gonna go away.
Oh,
That's beside the point.
Dan, you freaking unbelievable. I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
To me, if there isn't NIL, Jay Wright's probably coaching still, number 1. And you're right. You look at the amount of successful NFL players that have played under Saban, it's enough to fund, like modest-sized countries. So they should be fine in that sense. I just feel like with him, he wouldn't want to deal with that nonsense. He would. The other thing is we got to get the portal under control. Like JT Daniel is literally transferring for the 4th time. I mean, he's gone USC, Georgia, West Virginia, and he's transferring again. what are we doing here? There's got to be some limit on this. So I know it's a charade that they actually go to school and it's about the school and all that, but my God, man. I mean, it is outrageous how many times this dude has moved on. And by the way, he's not that good.
Yeah.
He's not that good. Like, you can keep searching for it.
He was replaced at West Virginia.
Yes, some lower D1 and play a lot, but you're not that good, man.
Yeah, I mean, this won't get aggregated, so I really don't care. That's why Jay Wright's gone. Just put it as simple terms as possible. Okay, so that's our top 4. We've got number 1 here on the ESPN Hates Us Power Rankings. Number 5, New England / Boston. Number 4, Ayahuasca Rogers. Number 3, Los Angeles Lakers. Number 2, Alabama football. Before we get to number 1, Husky Park TV, Eddie, we love you, says, what about the Sixers? They're doing pretty bad lately. They sure are. They are doing pretty badly.
Agreed. And no, here's the Sixers thing. Like, first of all, I want them to see them play together a little bit, so before they come to my final conclusion here.
Yeah.
But it just feels like, here we go again. Oh, they're pretty good some nights. Oh, and Embiid can dominate at times, and then he's going to not be interested for a little while. Harden is rusty, or he's not himself, or he's not the same guy. Blah blah blah. Doc, the same thing, and it smells like second round exit. What else is new?
It does. It's so upsetting.
Yes, and it's a bummer, man.
It is such a bummer.
For those of us that love basketball and loves the Sixers, and I was not anti-process by any stretch. I was willing to see it through. To have it likely end this way is a real bummer. A real bummer.
I mean, to follow it from 12 all the way through when Lavoy Allen was their starting power forward, to see where it is now sucks. It just. And while other teams are lapping them, frankly. We've talked about this on Sports Take too. Okay, so the number 1 team, if you're sitting here thinking, hey, you guys are from Philly, you're going to say Philly, you're wrong. I think we're too sensitive. ESPN barely pays attention to us, in my opinion. Number 1, Dallas Cowboys. Easily, in my opinion, Dallas Cowboys. Lavoy Allen is a legend. Thank you, Greg. The Dallas Cowboys are absolutely number 1 on the ESPN Hates Us Power Rankings. And not just because of Stephen A., right? Mike McCarthy, Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott. That is the holy trinity of guys we love to make fun of all the time. I mean, the whole thing about how Dak Cousins is basically Kirk Cousins. Dak Prescott is basically Kirk Cousins in the offseason was hilarious and true. And obviously, Jerry Jones has been running this organization into the ground for 30 years. And obviously, Mike McCarthy is not going to win another Super Bowl. That's why I can't believe everyone is so high and mighty on this Cowboys team. Look at their head coach. Mm-hmm. I don't get it.
Well, there's 2 things I can't get past. I laid this out today. Tell me there isn't going to be a scenario in the playoffs where there's some kind of time management, field goal versus going for a decision, some other kind of something of that ilk, challenging a play and wasting it or whatever, that is not going to fall at the feet of Mike McCarthy, and he's not going to go the wrong way with it. And tell me there isn't going to be a situation in a big moment where Dak doesn't come up small. It is inevitable. It's inevitable the Sixers getting bounced in the second round. But the media is so infiltrated with Cowboy people, with the Skip Baylesses of the world, with, and I don't even mind Troy Aikman as a broadcaster, but you know what I'm saying? Romo, they're everywhere. And the networks know. They know it is polarizing, push button, guys like us out of our mind on one side, and then the Cowboy lovers on the other side. The undercover Cowboy lovers like Trey Wingo and some of these other guys. Like it 100% is the case, and they know it. It's like any good bet, right? If you get one side to pony up on one team, you're loving life if you're the people in the middle, and the people in the middle are ESPN.
I'm going to say it right now, Rob Ellis. I think you're a sports conspiracy theorist. I love it. I love it. So how do we infiltrate this Cowboys media conglomerate? I mean, do we have to figure out a way to start sprinkling in some like Washington people, some Philadelphia people, like some Chargers people, just start flooding the market with other people?
A covert mission as undercovers, and we get in there, and then we can change some things up. But we have to be stealth in the way that we go about it.
I'll have to scrub my entire Twitter in order to be stealth enough to.
I love this terminology. Yes, scrub away. Yeah.
No. So that's the list. New England,
I like it, dude.
Aaron Rodgers, Los Angeles Lakers, Alabama football at number 1. the Dallas Cowboys. That's the first inaugural ESPN Hates Us Power Rankings.
Can I add one addendum?
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
It's not just ESPN, but it's a self-truth. The no one likes us, we don't care. The first part, true. The second part, untrue. We do care. We care that no one likes us.
Yes.
And we stop with any other charades. We care.
I love Philadelphia so much because we have such a complex in general. Yes. We are super tough and super sensitive, but don't ever talk about it.
Exactly.
We're like an Irish Catholic family, basically. Our entire fan base is basically that.
I will badmouth my brother, but if you even think about doing it, it's on, man. And that is us.
I mean,
look,
Gritty is the perfect example of this. When they rolled out Gritty, the response locally was, "What in the hell is that?" And then as soon as the nation was like, "We agree. What are you doing?" People were like, "No.
Yep.
I don't think so. That's our mascot. We love him now." And it was like within 20 minutes, it felt like. That was the reaction to Gritty. I love it.
Gritty originally was sort of like the uncle, like at the Fanatics family party that you don't talk about, that shows up on Thanksgiving that maybe had a few too many pops and he's had a tough go about it. And at some point he's going to embarrass somebody at the party or at the Thanksgiving dinner. That's what Gritty was. And now we're like, dude, don't talk about Gritty.
Yeah. Okay? Now we're like, I can't wait for Uncle Gritty to come over.
Let's go.
Like, you won't believe this guy.
Yes, yeah. I'm with you.
I love it. Rob Ellis joining us from Jacob Media. We'll turn our attention now to a little bit of NFL Week 14 chatter. Before we get there, though, just to kind of round all the way back, that Cowboys to win the Super Bowl probability from ESPN, I did sort of want to update us on where that all stands now, Rob, because I know we get to talk about it about once a week, but I'm curious for your reaction. In our Super Bowl markets, the Eagles are at 14.5%, $14.50 per contract to win the Super Bowl. That's been pretty steady throughout the year. They've kind of fluctuated between 12.5 and 14 where they are now. I mean, it's just your head there so we can see you. There we go.
Hi.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, there he is. And then the Cowboys are at $11.50. They've been around 9, so not much of a surprise there. The NFC Championship here is where there's such a mass difference between, I guess, the perceived probability and then what we have it on Sports Trade. So the Cowboys are just at 23. The Eagles are at 31.5. So if for whatever reason you're drinking the ESPN Kool-Aid and you think, wow, the Cowboys are really undervalued, you could go that route. But to me, Rob, this seems pretty appropriate.
I would exactly what I was just going to say. I think this is dead on. I don't see any of the ESPN bias there. I would say the interesting one is Minnesota, right? Because you can look at them two different ways. And I will get to the Cowboys and the Eagles. But the Minnesota thing's interesting to me in this sense. You can look at them one of two ways. The amount of close game, one score wins that they have, what is it, 8, something like that?
Yeah.
Is either, man, they're clutch, man, they know to come up big in the biggest of spots, or this is totally unsustainable and they're fortunate. Like if you watch their games, last week being a great example, that was given to them more than it was taken. And I can say that 3, 4, 5 different times I've watched them play this year. So I'm really not confident in them, even though they're pretty good. The Niners thing is totally in flux right now because either it turns into a Nick Foles situation, but the difference is Purdy's a rookie, man.
Yeah.
As good as their defense is, I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking at the Vikings now.
Yeah.
I would.
I wanted to save it, but let's just dive into it now.
Yeah. I would jump on them and I would get off it. Probably pretty quick. I'd be on and off. This would be a one-stop shopping for me.
There are so many various luck charts floating around the internet. I don't know how do you quantify that. But yes, I mean, this is a Vikings team that I think everyone is sort of sniffing at and saying it just doesn't really pass the test. Minnesota opened in this market that you're seeing now. You're seeing them at 45.5. They opened at 51.5 on Monday.
Jeez.
By 3 o'clock, we do the show at 4 o'clock every day. By 3 o'clock, they were underdogs. And now they're at 45.5. The Detroit Lions have beaten nobody.
Yeah, and so I know they're better. I think they've won 4 or 5.
But they haven't beaten anyone.
Right. What are we talking about? I mean, honestly, like that, there's been there's been 3 or 4 lines this year that have screamed at me. And this is one of them this week. This is a line that tells you a lot about what the real thoughts are on the Vikings.
Right.
And it's a line that if I was just betting the game, I would probably jump on Detroit. But yeah, I mean, this tells you about the level of belief that people ultimately have in them, that this line was as funky this week.
Last 5 weeks for the Lions, win over the Packers 15-9, win over the Bears 31-30, win over the Giants 31-18, a 3-point loss on Thanksgiving to Buffalo, a 40-14 win over Jacksonville. So it's quite possible the Lions just could be a team that started slowly and have gradually gotten much better. That's possible. The Jaguars are a team that they've bitten everybody in the ass all year.
Yep.
So I can't look at this objectively and say, yeah, they should be $10 higher in our markets than the Vikings. And because we don't move our lines, Rob, so like this came out, Detroit was -1.5. The Vikings were +1.5. I mean, it's basically just found its level.
Yeah.
I look at this game. It's a team I don't believe in and another team I don't believe in. To me, it's a complete stay away. I have no idea how to quantify this.
And that's the thing, Dan. It's okay to stay away.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
I mean, there are certain games you look at and they're just way too funky and there's way too many things going on that if you're a smart bettor, you're out of there. You're gone. You don't get involved in it. And this is a not involved.
And the total is 43.5 or 53.5 rather. Right now it's juiced towards the under at 54.50, the over trading at 47. These are two offenses that can score, but that is a huge number.
Yeah, I don't want to touch NFL, I don't like to get near those kind of numbers.
No. Way too big.
Yeah.
All right, we'll round back to the Eagles here. We'll go back to their market. So they're priced at 73.50 to take on the Giants at 28. A 6.5. 6.5 is the spread on the game. Right now, the market seems to think the Eagles are going to cover that. It's at 53.5. The Giants are at +6.5 at 48. The total 45.5, and the people seem to think that's going to go under. 54.5 is the contract price for the under. And, you know, I don't blame them. I think this is the Giants team that everyone, again, has sort of figured out.
Yep.
They came out early in the season, Rob. They won a couple close games. They're obviously the beneficiary of a lot of luck, in my opinion, as well. But they just seem burned out. They have no offensive weapons. Saquon Barkley, 242 carries this year. He's 19 away from a career high in only 12 games. Yeah. Guy coming off a high ankle sprain surgery, coming off an ACL. I think he's cooked.
Look at his rushing totals the last 4 or 5 games. They're leaking oil. They've asked him to do so much. I don't even fault him. Like, you know, and keep in mind, this guy missed a ton of time the last couple of years. This is like doubly, even the numbers that are unbelievable that you just laid out are even more because he hasn't played a full 16, 17 games the last couple of years. But, you know, you can only get by for so long offensively with nothing other than him where they're totally game planning for him. And look, Daniel Jones has been okay. He's been okay. I'm not going to kill him for this year. He's been all right.
Yeah.
In his defense, he has nothing other than Saquon. So I don't know what he's exactly supposed to do, but it's not only that. The reality is they've won 1 of their last 5 games. They're headed the wrong way. If you look at their numbers, they're terrible against the rush. They're not particularly good against the pass either. Then you go to the other side. Yeah, they can run it. They're 28th in passing. There's no reason to get behind this Giants team. It feels like an Eagles win. It feels like we're out thinking ourselves for the people who are good. Like you could easily do yes, it's an NFC East game and you throw all the records out. And there is some validity to that. I'm not going to kill it. But I like the Eagles here. I think the Eagles are streaking at the right time, and I think the Giants are going the other way.
Not a Richie James guy, myself.
I'm not a Richie James guy.
Not a Sterling Shepard guy. You have to really
like dig in on that roster, like Daniel Bellinger, you know, and some of the other guys. They're just, you know, they're not ready for primetime players. They should be backups.
Wan'Dale Robinson, a really good player. It's a shame he got injured, but he's the only one on the offense with any sort of juice. I mean, you looked at the way Saquon was running weeks 1 through 5 and the way he runs now. I mean, there's no reason to ever play anything other than 5 down fronts against this team. I expect Linval, Joseph, and Jordan Davis, if he plays more, to play a majority of the snaps this week. There's literally no reason to play coverage against this team.
I agree with you. There's no reason not to run blitz a little bit. And I'm not this Mr. Gannon's got to blitz all the time. I'm a supporter of Gannon, but I think you may see a lot of that too. There's no reason to respect this passing game whatsoever. The thing you'd worry about more than anything else is Daniel Jones just getting loose a little bit, because he can run. He's mobile, but this is not a team to be feared. They shouldn't be feared on the other side of the ball either. They're banged up on their defensive line also.
I don't think there's much guessing this one. I think if you're comfortable laying the 73.5 per contract, you just do it. We've seen a lot of traders on Sporttrade. We've seen a lot of traders on Sporttrade come in on pricing the last 2 weekends, 70, 75, 80, even $85. So you're like 85 to win 15. Coming in with 50 contract purchases, just grinding out that profit. Now, by myself, not in a position to do that, but to each his own.
Well, add one more thing to that, Dan, real
Yeah,
quick.
sure.
The fact that you're on a collision course with the Cowboys on the 24th,
Yep.
right? And that's
Yep.
going to be a massive game. And the Vikings, despite what we just said about them, somehow just keep winning. So these teams are pushing the Eagles. So these games are meaningful and necessary. So it's not like they're going to New York on Sunday or North Jersey on Sunday saying, whatever, if we lose, who cares? No, you kind of need to win. So I think that's also something to keep in mind.
One other thing you do, Rob, I'm curious for your thoughts on this, is in sports trade, you can short positions, meaning you can actually trade against something happening. Mm-hmm. One of the more interesting markets, in my opinion, to do this is the NFC South. Now, terrible division. Yep. The Buccaneers 6-6. Everyone else I think has at least 8 losses, but bad division. There are 5 weeks left. So I'm curious for your thoughts on this. The Buccaneers trading at $92 to win the NFC South, but you could short them for $89.5. Now, if you were to do that, you'd only have to lay $10.50 to win $87.71 if anyone else in this division comes back and wins. Are you doing it?
I would do it. I would absolutely do it. And the team I would look at is Atlanta. I don't really love any of these teams. Let me be clear about this, but I would look at Atlanta. I think Arthur Smith's done a pretty good job. I know they lost to the Steelers last week in a tight one, but I think it's worth it just for the payoff. A $10 investment there. And, if you end up losing that, you can make up for it somewhere else. But I would absolutely short this. I would short them 100%.
Don't sleep. Go ahead.
Who are you going to say?
Don't sleep on the Panthers.
Yeah.
I mean, their quarterback position is obviously terrible, but I think from a roster skill standard, a skill position standpoint, even though they've traded Robbie Anderson, they traded Christian McCaffrey, like they still have a good defense. They could still ground out wins in a terrible division. They can make it interesting.
Guys are playing for jobs too,
and
going forward with this team because there's a lot of things up in the air right now. So Panthers are an interesting team to look at as well.
Any other markets you're curious about as you take a look at the NFL slate? No worries if not.
In terms of divisions, like in the same way with
divisions, games, anything, yeah.
You know what might be an interesting the AFC East. It would be an interesting one. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah,
I'd be curious, kind of where things are there because you have a Buffalo team that's kind of similar to the Eagles in the sense that they have to keep winning, and then you have Miami. The Jets are a curious case. They should have won that game last week. And New England, is it time that we sort of write them off?
The market says so. The market says for 70 cents you can get them.
Boy.
And that's it. The Jets, who have lost to the Patriots twice, are at 5. The Dolphins just a game behind Buffalo, I believe. Buffalo's 9-3, Dolphins 8-4, and they still play each other.
Yeah, it's a good price,
or 21.
Man. Miami would be interesting to me. Buffalo, I don't know, man. I know the Von Miller news today was a big deal.
I think that's a big deal. They've spent a lot of first and second round capital on guys who do not get after the quarterback.
Yeah, and it's going to turn it. Here's the problem they're going to have. It's going to turn into, in certain situations, where Josh Allen will tend to play a little bit of hero ball sometimes. And I love Josh Allen, but he will force things.
Yes.
And having Miller out, if their defense is not able to shut other teams down and you're in a shootout, he's going to make some mistakes. So Buffalo is going to be one to keep your eye on here in general.
They also top our Super Bowl market. Before we go, Rob, thanks again so much for taking a half hour of your time. You're looking at the Super Bowl market here. Do you see any value? Do you see anything you like?
Bengals.
Okay, 7.5. Bengals at 7.5. Yeah, I mean, the Niners went from 13. I think we have the graphic here up from the other day. The Niners steadily went up and up and up, and they went from 13 to 7 just this week. So people are kind of thinking this team is done. Meanwhile, the Bengals went from 4.5 to 7. So they almost doubled their market value just in the last week.
Big believer. A couple reasons. One, Burrow's really on right now. He's gotten Jamar Chase back. Their defense is playing better. They're not all the way there where they made that run in the playoffs, but I think they're playing better than where they were. I think they're well coached. Taylor doesn't get a lot of love nationally, but I think he is a good coach. I think the season started with that typical losing the Super Bowl hangover, but I think they've graduated from that and kind of moved on. So they're one I would look at really hard. The thing with San Francisco is I have to be in a holding pattern right now with them because I don't know what this is going to look like 2-3 games in with Purdy. It could be good. It could be bad. It's not really a negative, but I can't dive all the way in right now. I got to just have a little bit of patience, knowing how good their defense is and knowing I think Shanahan will coach him up well, but I don't know in a critical situation that he's not going to make mistakes. So I got to hold on the 49ers. I would jump on the Bengals. Absolutely.
Eagles again at 14-5 for an opportunity to win their second Super Bowl in the last 6 years. Rob Ellis from Jacob Media and Sports Take. Make sure you check them out every single weekday, noon to 3 on the program. I have the privilege of joining them once a week, hanging out with the guys. And Rob, we appreciate you hanging out with us.
Thanks, Dan. I'll see you Friday, man. Take care.
Sounds good. See you, everybody.